And for me, where it really stimulated my energetic centers was in the back of my second vertebrae, first vertebrae, the primal brain. And the more I discover with those type of centers, they are connection to cosmos. They are connection to being able to travel to various wherever realities you wish to travel. That's kind of the pathway where a lot of that begins in the brain.
Welcome back, sacred travelers, to another captivating episode. If you have listened to some of the episodes before, you know how passionate I am myself about the Magdalenes, and that is why I am really so excited to have a conversation about her sacred lands with an embodiment of the sacred masculine that is utterly devoted to Mary Magdalene and her ministry, Bart Sharp.
Hi, Julia. It's great to be on your show.
Well, thank you for being here, Bart. Bart is an intuitive and shamanistic practitioner helping people release their deepest repressed limitations. Bart has served others for 20 years, combining psychological knowledge with an immense knowledge of how the energetic body works in relation to the human condition. Whether it is an abused childhood interacting with shadow aspects of self, entity removal, or various highly abnormal traumas, Bart has helped those with anything from normal to unusual issues. The desire to teach and facilitate a greater consciousness is Bart's driving passion. He does this in a variety of ways, from private sessions, classes, books such as Magic Speaks, audio downloads, intuitive tour guide to sacred sites in the southwest of France, and as a radio show host of Becoming Quantum Conscious on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network. His home is Austin, Texas, and of course, France. So welcome, Bart. I'm so excited to have you here.
Well, thank you so much, Julia. It's a real pleasure to be here. And we both have this passion for France, Magdalene, and I would imagine you're much like me. You weren't for sure what that was all about. You had to come for whatever reason that is. And when you arrive there, you're more likely surprised with the depth of a divine feminine presence that just grows in the ground, the rocks, the trees, flows through the water. It seems to be everywhere. And Mary Magdalene is a part of it, as opposed to Mary Magdalene created all of this. This is a very ancient land. And Mary, most likely, or at least in my theory, we really don't know, she came there for a lot of the same reasons we do today.
You know, you already described the lands so poetically. And my first question to you is actually, how would you explain the sacred site medicine of the south of France?
Well, it's different in every location. You know, it always brings up the question, well, was this all designed with a purpose, like a human made intention with from people so ancient we do not or not able to find? Is it natural? And the answers might be a little bit of both. One of my peers, Annie Williams, just wrote Guardians of the Dragon Path, and she really saw a lot of characteristics of the land, of crystals, certain type of mineral content in the soil, copper in the land, limestone, and of course, the ley lines that run underneath that creates kind of this impetus for this to happen. And these are places that have been summoned probably, because they come up in very specific designs, ley lines, patterns. They happen to come up in peaks, caves, and they also have very exact ley line designs, such as a pentagram, that support some of the main energetic sites. And of course, this is common, particularly all throughout Europe, of different menhirs or megalithic sites being in a triangular or five-sided shape or eight-sided shape of different sites that are all linked together, which each site having a purpose. One supports the other, but there's always one site that seems to be the centerpiece, which is, maybe why the design was created that way. And probably the one in France or this area that fits that concept is Rennes Le Chateau. And for those who have never been, that means queen of the fortress, as the English interpretation of that. But it's on a large hill that seems to be a centerpiece hill. It's seen from afar, great location. And one of the biggest triangulations for these ley lines is these three that are, one is Mount Sinai and Egypt, then the Bomberg Islands in Denmark, and Rennes Le Chateau. It's a triangulation, and that's a big triangle, thousands of miles. They each have a purpose. The Bomberg Islands are more of a grounding force. Sinai is, it's almost like a golden psychic energy. I think it fuels a lot of places. Very, very powerful. Maybe the most powerful place in the world. And then Rennes Le Chateau. Rennes Le Chateau is the beacon point. In other words, a energy beams out almost like a big tower. It's a very invisible tower, interdimensional tower that sends something out throughout universes and throughout cosmos. And I don't think anybody really knows its purpose. Not many know its exact location on the little mountaintop of Rennes Le Chateau, and it's kind of a little secret. It's on private land. It's not in the church, like everybody would say, oh, well, it should be in the church. The church is very powerful. It has ley lines intersecting there. There's a lot all intertwining and coming to that place. So that's a great example of how this design is. So, and there's so many power spots in general. It's not just a few.
Mm.
I don't think anybody really knows them all. There's so many.
Yeah, I agree. And thank you for going big and broad and also bringing in Sinai and Denmark. I didn't know about that triangulation. That is super interesting to find out more. And so you touched more about, as I like to call it, like the land of the Cathars, where Rennes Le Chateau is that centerpiece. And there is also, for those of you who are watching, the mountain behind me, and this other region where Mary Magdalene supposedly has one cave or several caves. Would you like to speak a little bit more into these power spots? This is singular, which doesn't give it full credit.
So you're talking about Grotte Le Baume and
Yeah.
Maximilian Saint Le Baume, the church, where there's a relic there that many say is Mary Magdalene. And I don't know, there's a lot of controversy with that. I would imagine there's been a lot of arguments in coffee shops and bars throughout Europe about that same concept. Historians are very interesting creatures because they research tremendous hours, and they spend so much time with research that sometimes it gets a very strong opinion. Let's just put it that way. I found those sites very powerful. The Le Baume right behind you, it really brought up this impression, and mine is intuitive. It's not historical, and I can only tell you my impressions, and maybe you can profit from it. And I think the best way you can profit from it is to just go yourself and feel it and see how it changes you. That's really what the gift is. It's not the history, but the stories are important. And also, it really helps you learn what you're looking for. I really saw the impressions that this cave and Mary was there. There's a spot in the cave to the side, there's a bench. And when you sit on the bench, you're automatically guided to look into the cave wall. That seems to be a gateway, and it goes into more of an interdimensional space. I really think she astral traveled a lot. And for an ascended master, that is not uncommon.
Traveling to the places that hold clues to your unique soul evolution is shifting your entire consciousness into a higher octave. And often, the missing piece, clicking your body in place with your spiritual growth. Now, are you ready to embark on a transformational soul journey that you will never forget? Check out my sacred travel itinerary for 2025 by clicking the link in the show notes. There are 3 unique trips calling your soul home to retrieve codings to unlock deeper knowing of self and the universe. An initiation and ascension grid journey into the sacred landscape of Egypt in December. A Magdalene pilgrimage to the sacred sites of southern France in May. And a light body and solar feminine consciousness activation in the Valley of Light in Switzerland over the summer solstice in June this year. Which one is calling you? Click the link in the show notes to find out more and book an info call with me. I'll see you on the grid.
This was something that in Anna Grandmother of Jesus by Claire Harsong, she mentioned Jesus in his younger years going to India, spending a long time in a cave and being guided by the ascended master Babaji. Now, Babaji is very accessible if you wish to summon Babaji and use him as a guide, but he is an interdimensional traveler. The Egyptians were interdimensional travelers. And this is part of the line of becoming more of a ascended master or a highly evolved person as you begin to master the stars. So many cultures are doing it. The American Indians, that's where their base of spirituality is. So this is not a far off concept. And I think this was Mary's time to do that, to spend her later years being in this cave, kind of finishing up, so to speak, because she spent a lot of life in service. And she was the cornerstone of so much spirituality founded by the Cathars. And they followed the teachings of Mary that were very much related to Jesus. There's so many logical conclusions with that. When we go to this Maximilian St. Baume, the Basilica of Magdalene, as they say, and you go into the crypt where the skull is, and people say, this is Mary Magdalene. My God, it is extremely powerful. And for me, where it really stimulated my energetic centers was in the back of my second vertebrae, first vertebrae, the primal brain. And the more I discover with those type of centers, they are connection to cosmos. They are connection to being able to travel to various wherever realities you wish to travel. that's kind of the pathway where a lot of that begins in the brain. Of course, it takes a whole body to do that. It's not just one place. Interesting enough, I was reading, or not reading, but seeing a video on people with autism that are,
Mm-hmm.
highly intelligent, have autism, and now they are talking about all going to a reality where they all meet. They call it the hill, and all around the world, they're astral traveling or bringing their presence goes to this place where they commune, visit, be in community together, and none of them really know. It's not a school you go to do this. It's like they intuitively know how to go to this place. This is
Mm-hmm.
really cutting edge
Mm-hmm.
information. And, when they're talking about, well, what does it take to do that? They're talking about the same parts of the brain that Mary Magdalene is. It's a place that we, you know, can develop. And I think when you go to a cave like this or to the church, Maximilian St. Baum, the memory of those places can open you to learn those skills. And a lot of times it takes time to go and, return and keep returning and learn what they have to offer. So those are fabulous places to be. I'll be returning this summer.
Wow, I bet you can't wait. And well, thank you. I mean, this is a whole book, I feel, on different topics that we could speak about. Let's go a little bit into the direction what I also feel is your specialty. Like you've been leading people for 20 years plus into these magical places where this transformation happens. And I feel the combination of the alchemy that happens when you lead them is at the same time very grounded, but also very cosmic. So can you speak, and this is my impression, so I'm just like reflecting
Yeah,
that
yeah.
back. I don't know if it's true or not, but can you speak a little bit into what's, yeah, the transformational aspects when that memory unlocks within your own self?
It's always different for different people. And it's and I think the group magnifies. As a tour leader, you want to create harmony. You want to guide people, focus them, set kind of a tone that we're here to focus. We're going to have fun and we're going to see some amazing things. But the whole purpose of this is to expand your consciousness and go to these sites and do that. And that's kind of front and center. Some people aren't certain why they're there sometimes. And you have to just be very clear. And that's a lot for the people that are clear, that they are not hindered by somebody that might not be there for the right reasons. It's so important for me to get that all clear before anybody signs up for the tour. I've learned the hard way on that one. And so in the 10 years I've been doing this, it's lessons for me. Each site has a specific quality and they open people in different ways. And some sites resonate with some people, others with others. And what my job is to activate those sites if I can. Some sites that's not really necessary. And and then some people come in and they show you stuff that you're not aware of. So
Mm.
it's like you have to be really open, almost like to a spontaneous experience, because that magic can happen and new awarenesses show up. But
And release expectation.
yeah, yeah, and let people have that experience and expansion. And everybody's looking for something, and it's neat to see somebody having a big breakthrough. It doesn't happen for everybody on every tour, but it happens to a lot of people on every tour. But everybody gets expanded. Sometimes it's just a daily expansion, and people walk away going, I'm totally different. I know I was the first summer I spent in France. I come back to Austin. It's like, what am I doing here? Yeah, I'll have more reason to come back. I have found if there's one consistent thing that I just learned over the last couple of years is to chant. I never was a big
Yeah.
chanter or using sound healing or sound trans activations. I like that word better with tuning forks and stuff. But I am a real believer in that now because I see so many sites activated when you start doing a chant. And it's you need to do something that's comfortable for you. For example, I have American Indian heritage from the United States. So I start chanting something of American Indian chants. And it's funny because that's just kind of in my blood. And I think because it's so old in me, that feels more applicable than just doing ohms or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a wildness that shows up and in places that, some places you really know that are special, but you never figure out how to activate them. And then one day it happens. It's like, oh my God, this place is great, type of thing.
Do you have a
There's,
favorite place?
oh God, there's so many. If there's one that I'd say is, well, there's just one place I was thinking about this. I was telling this story. I found this place by a woman I rented a room from, and it's out in the woods, out by the Pic de Bugarach. Hardly anybody ever goes to it. And nobody I've ever taken that are locals has ever been there before. But you walk in and you know what's special. There's a circle of trees right in the front of the forest with a very big old deva tree that's kind of right in the front. And you pass by it and you know you're kind of stepping into another reality, so to speak. And you're looking around at the rocks and stuff. And there's one that looks like a throne, but it doesn't look like a throne. It has all of these different shapes. But then there's another big rock that feels like it's high vibration. It has a cross carved into it, which whenever you, in that area particularly, if you see a large rock with a cross, not like a Christ cross, but just a square cross, it means that it's a healing or a high vibrational rock. So we go back to the back, and there's a circle of stones. It looks like it's a stone circle, but then you go, this isn't exactly right. But when we looked at it at closer inspection, it's a spiral. And we go, oh, this is neat. We would stand in the middle of the spiral and then feel that vibration. I'm going, there's something more to this. And then I bring a woman there and she just starts chanting on the center rock, and the whole force comes alive in a vibration I never knew before. So I love to go to this place because it's beautiful. You can activate that energy. You have this ancient tree that you can meditate with. And still, we don't know all of what it was. This was something of an ancient place that people or maybe fairies use. We don't really know. It's a wild place, though. There's
It
lots
sounds
of,
like a wild place.
yeah. It's all in nature, and you sit on certain rocks, and they activate it in like many of the places where the power spots are in this area. They have a lot of white crystals in them, like they not like a quartz crystal, but a white type of crystal and structure, which is also the case with the Stargate Mountain Peak de Bugarach. There's a lot of crystal rocks all in that mountain.
Yeah.
It really helps everything magnify.
I can feel the vibration.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a great place to go and be quiet for an afternoon and meditate and do energy work and write and relax and, have all the privacy in the world. It's a wonderful place. There's another place that is just a ongoing mystery of how to unlock all of what can be unlocked there. It's a church called Saint Salvaire, and that'd be Salvayre. Have you been there?
I haven't been there, but I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's close to Le Bon. You drive up a windy, steep hill, maybe like a small mountain. Guess you could call it a mountain. And, and and you come to the top, and there's a small church and two houses, and there's lots of goats and farm animals roaming around, and that's always fun. But this church is the shape of a cross, a square cross, made 2,000 years ago, and I don't even think it was a church. From what I understand, it was a Roman hostel where people would stay on their way as they walked to Carcassonne. So the legend is that Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were traveling on this road, and they spent the night in this hostel, and Jesus died there. Now, there's all kinds of theories. We don't want to create any controversy with this show. However, what I do know is strong evidence is when you put your hands on the altar and ask for the presence of Yeshua to appear, something comes in. And a lot of people have channeled, and people who normally don't channel if they're close to having that talent and ability. And it's very strong with Yeshua's presence. But that's just one aspect. It's almost like there's a gateway above the altar that goes into higher realms. And at the same time, on the opposite side of the church is this post, and it looks like a post that you would maybe tie your goats to for an overnight stay. It almost looks petrified. It's so old. And you start meditating with the post, and disconnects with a Gaia consciousness or Sophia or Magdalene consciousness. It's the divine feminine of the earth. So in this church, you have one that goes into the ground on one side and one that goes up into the upper realms on the other side of the church. And of course, you can activate those. And interesting enough, when you walk around the outside of the church, they have carved the faces of each of the chariots of fire, which are these little, some people say, oh, it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I don't really get that. The chariots of fire are a winged eagle, a winged bull, a lion, and a man. And what their purpose is to bring down from the heavens anybody that you request, the prophets, Yeshua, the highest order of angels. The list goes on, but that's what they do. And you'll see the chariots of fire in various churches in France. And to me, that's a signal that this they've summoned spirit in.
Mm.
And literally, you can ask the chariots of fire to open up this church and bring in spirits from both realms, the earth and the upper regions. And then it really starts coming in. And literally, when you bring in groups and you bring all of this energy in, everybody kind of gets to dance with it, so to speak. They can be at the spots, and they go into their own inner journey about what that is for them. And I've just seen people have some very profound experiences there. Of course, none of this came very present to me automatically. It took, a lot of experience and, finding each little piece and part with it. The Chariots of Fire concept came from Lars Moore from the book, Law of Light. And he talks about those. And I never had heard the chariots in that context. And now it's like, yeah, they're interdimensional. It's an interdimensional concept. So now when I look at Saint Salvaire, it's like, yes, this was a Roman hostel. It became a very holy place of a church that's been revered for a very long time. I personally see it as a launching pad. Like, you can launch into other worlds, and the sky is the limit.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bringing it up. I've never heard about the concept. I will definitely want to look it up. And I also took a note of all the books that you mentioned. The most of them I knew, but we're just going to make sure to put them in the show notes so people can refer back to them.
Oh, great. Yeah. Those are all 3 inspirational books that I think will educate people.
Happiness. One of the most abstract and intangible concepts in the world. Yet an inner drive compels us all to seek it. But how can we discover it if we don't fully understand it? True happiness isn't found, it's experienced. It is the active tranquility of mind and soul. When our senses and feelings are deeply stimulated, and joy takes over our being. Our Hevel products are crafted with nature-inspired scents that awaken your senses and emotions, guiding you toward a deeper unity with each moment. Because the true source of your happiness is you. Lovelights, quintessence of life.
They're more the metaphysical books, or the more for psychics as opposed to history. And history books are great. I love Margaret Starbard's Woman with the Alabaster Jar. That's a great book on a lot of the history. There's so many great books that are coming out these days. But I definitely think the psychics writing about this stuff is really important if that's what you're interested in. And it's not that, if you're a psychic that you follow these people exactly the way they do it, because your path's going to be different. But you can get an idea of how to find your own way.
Absolutely. And I'm giggling inside because sometimes I really have the need to pick up a normal book again that I can just like read and enjoy, versus these basically living transmissions, which to me is more like a working journal that you don't read them. You pick them up and you work with them, and it's intense, and sometimes even to a point where it's like exhausting, right? So sometimes I just crave for a normal book to read for leisure.
Well, there's a special art to making a channel book. I really believe that I've read channel books that I don't really get it, so to speak. And then I read somebody that I find phenomenal. In fact, on my radio show, Becoming Quantum Conscious, in about 3 weeks on March 5th, excuse me, I will have a woman named Barbara Brodsky, who wrote a book called 47 stories of Jesus you likely never heard.
Oh, wow.
It gives a concept of what Jesus is in such a sincere way that you would think if Jesus was just a traveler about, going from village to village, this was likely how it was. She gives a picture of what the way of life was back then, and probably how he would have acted, and it just feels so spot on. It's like a small section of his life, but it's a fabulous book. And when I read it, I go, God, this lady's got it. I felt opened and inspired by that. And yeah, there's people that really get that message across, and they're very valuable. Mostly, I think, you can't really look at it from a historical perspective, but you look at it from how it opens you.
Yeah.
You kind of step into that reality of what they were channeling.
That kind of like brings me back to the experience, the transformation that you were sharing about. And I guess I would want to know, how do you then, as a facilitator, also support people to really bring this into their daily lives? As you said, you go back home to Austin and then you're like, what is this? Like, this is my reality, but how do I deal with that?
I bring home rocks. I really
Yes.
do in photos.
Yes, me too. Rocks and water.
Yeah, and I meditate with the rocks. I hold them, and I go into the vibration of what they are. It seems like limestone rocks in particular hold that space for that, and it helps facilitate that. I have a couple of rocks from the Grotte La Baume. Maybe I shouldn't say that. In France, that's like kind of cute, but in America, if they had a place like that, they go, well, that's illegal. It's just a different culture over here. But they've taught me a lot. They taught me how to maintain that place of space travel with that. So what gifts they do bring. And it's just so funny how these places keep popping up. In the 10 years I've done this, every year I learn of new places. I'm surprised by new things and new enthusiasm for places. A friend of mine and I are starting to discover more like smaller power spots that surround Rennes Le Chateau. And of course, maybe one of them people know about, but the other ones, I don't think anybody really knows about. They're more like, as I walk about, I start to feel vibrations in the land, and almost like point my finger across the landscape. And if there's an energy that pops up, then I start to hunt, so to speak. And that's how we find them. But they seem to very much resonate and support Rennes Le Chateau. And of course, we're in that question of, well, what type of sequence do you use to really unlock it and unlock the energy of the church even more, or the hillside, and just see what happens. This is kind of like treasure hunting in play, for a couple of us that we have that type of curiosity.
Yeah, I would totally be up for that. But, I also feel this is only possible because you spent so much time on the land, versus sometimes what I see with, I'm going to call them like spiritual seekers that are on these trips. It's kind of like a rushing through and like getting it all and then leaving again, versus what you do as a complete different concept. And so I would actually also would like to explore with you a little bit what you see that might be some downsides that these sites are getting more and more popular and people are more interested in visiting these places.
Yeah, yeah. And the spiritual seekers, all you can say is, well, that's a good start. Okay. And it's kind of like finding a guru or a spiritual teacher, and you stay in that paradigm and you're trying to complete the path that they have walked. And that's not what it's about. Those are just starting points. And some teachers will say, "Oh no, you got to stay with this discipline. It worked for me. It'll work for you." I'm not really akin to that point of view. I think it's all very individual, and it's about you unwinding this higher vibration inside of you, almost like it's a spiral, or energetic space that gets lighter and lighter and lighter, and your energies keep, or your consciousness keeps evolving due to the lightness that's in your body. And that's an ongoing thing. And whether you're in France or, for me, Austin, Texas, it continues. Austin has a very dynamic energy, but it's not in power spots or the land, it's in the people.
Mm.
People in Austin are very hungry for creating something different. And I think that's kind of a quality to Austin. And different means a lot of things to a lot of people. It could be that it's just a big high tech revolution. However, that still has the energy of a curious mind that is exploring, that is adventing to what is next. And that is an impetus of consciousness that you can hook into and expand your own spiritual journey. We share that in vibration, and that's how you take advantage of it. And just as the same as when I'm in France, I'm taking advantage of what the land has to offer me and the community of people. And it's a small community there that really just live it, and they're always working on it. It's facilitated something very special in their lives. It's kind of like a fraternity, friends, that have that from various places in the world. There's not many Americans. There's people from England and France and Belgium, Holland, Germany, a few other places. But we're all there, and we all have this love for France and this land.
Feels almost
And
like
even,
there's a guardianship.
yeah, yeah. And Magdalene is kind of the front picture because I think that's what she did. I think she had this desire over anything was to explore and see what this possibility was. And much like Yeshua, you know, they didn't have a guru. They were out on their
Yeah.
own, and they were calling in spirits, spirit guides, communing with the land, and going deep inside of their own soul for what the answers were. And when you start to get into that inquisitiveness, answers will come to who you are. It's not always being a healer or an author or a prophet. You could just be a good doctor or a high tech person, but you have innovations that come from the openness of your own creativity, which should be a second chakra quality.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah. So it's kind of having that exploration with that. And then, just the practicalness of tours. If you're going to start doing a tour, you have to figure out real practical things like who's going to cook your food?
Very
and to
important.
get good cooks. I really enjoy supporting the French community because there's a lot of people that are kind of winging it, so to speak, with their own small businesses, and they do these type of things. And it's a gift to get some good ones that really take care of you. And that's so important to take care of people when you're doing it and make them feel safe. You have to get all of those things in order to where they go to bed in a secure place. They have good food. You wake them up to surprises that are very special that they would not get in their home country. All of these things, make a big difference because it's a vacation too, and there's it's not like we're in, as we say in America, in a boot camp where we're having to rough it. No, we want to be safe and secure, and then we get ready to do this. I think that's a really important part of it.
Yeah, I agree 100% because then that's one of the, I would say, feminine qualities, where like when that safety is, and I'm speaking like in energetic polarities, that when this safety is created, that's when we open up as a person and as a soul to be able to receive that
Yeah.
which needs to be received.
Yeah, and everybody on a tour generally has something to offer to me in that spiritual journey. And and it's kind of listening to see how all of that unfolds and what talents and abilities show up with all of these things. It's funny, there's a woman, she was Chinese, about 35, and she was a accountant. And she dressed kind of nerdy and just looked like, how is she going to fit in? Just this was my question because she really had like a little bit of psychic abilities, but she wanted to be there. And we go to this really spectacular place called Hermitage de Galamoose. It's a church within a cave. Magdalene, there's a lot of people that say, yes, she did rituals there. It feels like a Magdalene presence there, but it's so much greater than that as well. And she walks in there, sitting down, and the presence of Yeshua and Magdalene came into her. And she had that presence with her for the whole tour. She never experienced anything like that. And that type of mediumship quality has stayed with her. And she broke through it by being in that church. That was like crossed her over.
Wow.
You never know when somebody's going to come to that edge. And as a tour guide, you're just trying to be curious about, well, where is there a crossover point? And can I help facilitate that? What would that take? It's something you can't push, but, sometimes you can kind of help it come out.
Yeah. How beautiful. Wow. All
Yeah.
right. So we are
It's fun.
already, it's fun. And I guess, for some of my own experiences, they are also very physical. So I guess it's what you say, it's the preparation and also taking good care of yourself as a facilitator to be able to hold these spaces. And then also, again, like the curiosity, the staying open and all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a neat process that takes a lot of fine tuning. It does. I've made plenty of mistakes in it, and that helps you have your humility that you're not the expert all the time. You may know a lot of stuff, but it's always unfolding. It's a spiritual journey for me. But what really makes it what tears down your own boundaries and about your ability to give and to facilitate is that when you have the perspective of service, that you're serving others, and you don't have to be a priest or a holy person to do this. You just have to be somebody that keeps their heart open and listens and is willing to give to people, in that ideal of service. And that is about equality. It's real clear what my service is to help the consciousness of people grow and expand. And that also applies to everybody on the planet.
It does. And I feel, this is at the core of what Mary Magdalene and Yeshua were teaching. So it all comes back to that.
It really does. And when you get your heart open and your heart feels expanded in a way you never known it before, something in you becomes more alive. And in that celebration, you're more loving, you're more generous. You want to help others because you feel more full and whole inside of yourself. Your sense of lacking has diminished or maybe disappeared, which that's a pretty hard concept. But when you get that out of the way and you get more full, good things happen.
Yeah. Well, completely. And I get what you're saying. And, it is a hard concept, but I also see that for many people, this is still the reality. So it is what you say, this transcendence of the separation, like coming into coherence and into the understanding that you are part of all of that and we are all connected.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know that you have an amazing, at least the title already is super intriguing, a book coming out soon, The Wild Feminine of Bugarach. Is there,
right.
Can you give us some teasers?
Oh, my pleasure. It's mainly my journey into being in this area of what I've learned in stories, much like what I tell here. I give an analysis of Saint Salvaire as one of my chapters, a lot of information about Bugarach. I try to make it a little humorous and not so like, like kind of a regimented type of thing. This is what spirituality is. No, it's more about my own personal experiences and how it works in my body. I'd love for people to read this and get ideas of how they want to do their own inner exploration. That's what it's all about. And so that's the fun part of the book. And I've got my rough draft completed, and I'm just working on editing now, which is the fun part of writing a book, of getting everything tweaked the way you want it to be.
As long as you consciously get to enjoy the process, then that's amazing.
Yeah, it's fun to write books. It's also, you have to muster something up inside of you that wants to be dedicated to that. It has to be a big desire inside of you to keep you on that task to write 200 to 300 pages.
Is that your first book?
No, I've written 4. I wrote a book called Magic Speaks on Magic. The Healing Planet was as teaching you intuitive abilities by communing with nature. Then one on the sacred sites of France, which is more like a tour guide book. So yeah, it's kind of an obsessive thing. But that's the whole point, is when you start to get into service, that's what it's about. Much like my radio show called Becoming Quantum Conscious on United Public Radio Network. It's about getting people on the show that have more conscious ideas. And so we get that stimulus happening, and it's not about the sensationalism of whatever paranormal activities happen. It's more something that people walk away with, something that they could use. That's what I want to get out of people. I'm a teacher at hand. I was a school teacher before I started this life. So I think that nerdy teacher in me is always wanting to say, well, what's the educational opportunity here? This is how I think.
I can relate to that 100%. And again, I work a lot with the different feminine archetypes. And to me, Mary Magdalene is also the ultimate teacher. So it all completely,
It really is.
yeah, like fits into the puzzle. That is beautiful. Yeah. And so tell us, when is your next tour? Is there still spaces available for people to sign up for?
Well, my September tour from 10th through the 20th has spaces. I have one space in April on April 16th. The rest of them are full. It's the community. I mean, the community. If you're on Facebook, there's a group called Sacred Sites of Mary Magdalene in France Tours. I run that. I've done so for 10 years. It was kind of like my tour business group, hence tours on the end of the page.
So much.
It's grown. It's like a community now, and people advertise tours or projects or whatever, but more importantly, thoughts that they have about spirituality and how it works. And I really encourage people to do that and send photos and, all of that stuff, because so many of us love this place. And it's very dear to a lot of people's hearts. And so we just want that awareness to come out. Even if you never go to France, there might be a place that holds for you. And you can look at here and maybe get insights on how to facilitate your own Shangri-La someplace else.
I mean, that the group is how I found you, and the way that you host this group, and also the incredible wisdom you are so generous with, and like letting people share. It truly is a community. It's like this living mandala, and people bringing pieces of the puzzle together. So I would, highly encourage everybody to check that out. And it's also, I've found a lot of people who come on there who can't travel or aren't able to travel for whatever reason, and they just enjoy to receive pictures or like being in the spirit of the sites that are being shared, the wisdom that is being shared.
Well, thank you so much for that. It is a lot of fun to do it. I think that's what creativity should always be about, is just to create and to build and to grow. And you never know how it's going to merge or what it's going to inspire for your next creative endeavor. But if it's powerful and it has like some inspiration inside of you that's deep, good things are going to happen. It's a very non-linear action. It's kind of disappointing when people start to, they pick up a paintbrush or a guitar or, and they start, fiddling around, and they start judging their creations like, well, will people like this, or will this make me money? And it's a judgment you should never place on yourself. It's more like, this is fun. This is interesting to me. I'm going to create more. It's you keep it in an open-ended container that way, or not a container, just an open-ended concept, and things will happen. That's what creativity is about.
There is definitely so much that we can learn from you about this, having fun and staying curious. So thank you for bringing that kind of energy, not only in the interview, but in all of the tours and the groups. And I
Thank you
really
so
enjoy
much,
that.
Julia. I
Well,
appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Is there any final piece of wisdom that you want to share with the listeners? Yeah, about the importance of visiting sacred sites or connecting with these ancient energies.
You want to expand and feel it inside of you, and take what happens inside of you and cultivate it like a plant. Let it grow inside and let it teach you how to be in that space. It's like the body holds that space, the heart holds it, and eventually the mind will follow in on that consciousness, and they all work together. But you really had to understand that higher vibration inside of you. That's the beauty of going to sacred sites. That's the beauty of feeling your emotions and then resolving them more like as a visceral experience, and doing all of this growth work to really feel who we are, perceive yourself instead of think it.
Mm. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Bart. Thank you for coming and for sharing, again, like your wisdom so generously about all the sites and how to approach it. And I am definitely already excited for your book.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks for having me on the show. That's really a lot of fun.
Thank you for coming. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And as always, stay curious and continue to escape the ordinary. I'll see you next time.